Everyone thought Henry was just another homeless man. No family, no money, no future. He was part of the city's background, a shadow on a park bench. But when his will was finally read, a document no one even knew existed, an entire courtroom fell silent. This is the story of the man everyone saw, but no one really knew. Henry lived on the same bench in downtown Seattle for nearly 10 years. For a decade, that worn-out wooden seat was his home. His world was confined to that small square of pavement. Thousands of people walked past him every single day. Most people hurried by, their eyes fixed on their phones or the pavement ahead, pretending he wasn't there. Some would cross the street just to avoid eye contact, as if his poverty was contagious. He was an invisible man, a ghost haunting a busy city street. In all those years, through freezing winters and scorching summers, only one person ever stopped. Her name was Emily, a young woman who saw more than just a ragged coat and a weathered face. Emily worked at a small coffee shop just around the corner from Henry's bench. Every morning, like clockwork, on her way to open the shop, she would make a small detour. In her hands, she'd carry a steaming cup of black coffee for Henry. Sometimes, if she had extra tips from the day before, she'd bring him a warm breakfast sandwich too. She never asked him for anything in return. She never pried into his past or asked why he was there. She just offered a simple, human connection, a warm drink, and a gentle smile. This went on for years. The coffee became a silent ritual, a bond forged in unspoken understanding. One brisk autumn morning, as Emily handed him the cup, Henry's voice, raspy from disuse, broke the silence. He looked at her with eyes that held a lifetime of stories, and asked, "Why are you so kind to me? No one else even looks at me." Emily offered him that same gentle smile and simply said, "Because my father was once invisible too." That small confession opened a door Henry had kept locked for years. Slowly, cautiously, he started to open up to Emily. He told her he wasn't always on that bench. He was once an engineer, a brilliant one at that. He designed bridges, structures that connected people and places. He had a beautiful wife, his college sweetheart, and a bright, laughing daughter who was the center of his universe. They had a home, a life, a future. And then, it was all shattered. One rainy night, a drunk driver ran a red light, one horrifying crash, and in an instant, everything he loved was gone. His wife and daughter were taken from him. The grief was a tidal wave that swept him away. He lost his family, and in the aftermath, he lost himself too. The man who built bridges couldn't find a way to bridge the chasm in his own heart. The bench wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a self-imposed prison, a penance for surviving when they didn't. But there was a part of Henry's life that even Emily, his only friend, knew nothing about. His afternoons were not spent aimlessly on the bench. Once the morning rush of commuters faded, Henry would quietly make his way to the downtown public library. The librarians knew him by name. He wasn't there for shelter from the cold. He was there to study. He spent hours upon hours poring over thick, heavy law books. He was particularly interested in tort law, wills, and estates. He took meticulous notes in a worn-out spiral notebook. A few times a month, he would have quiet, discreet meetings with a young, idealistic legal aid attorney who saw the sharp mind behind the weary exterior. Together, they were preparing something important. Henry, the man who had nothing, was carefully and methodically preparing his last will and testament. He was a man with a plan. The day Henry passed away was a quiet one. He died peacefully in his sleep on that very same bench. Emily was heartbroken when she found him that morning, his coffee untouched beside him. She assumed he died as he lived, with nothing to his name. A few weeks later, she received a certified letter from a law firm, summoning her to the reading of the will of one Henry Garrison. Confused, she went to the courthouse. The room was filled with slick lawyers representing a major insurance corporation and the estate of the drunk driver, who had destroyed Henry's life. They were there as a formality, expecting the case to be dismissed. The lawyer began to read. Henry's will was extraordinary. For 10 years, from the library, Henry had been building a meticulous lawsuit against the drunk driver's estate and the insurance company that had used legal loopholes to avoid paying out for his family's wrongful death. He had gathered evidence, cited precedents, and built an ironclad case. His will was not about distributing assets. It was a legal masterpiece. It directed that the lawsuit be carried out, with any and all proceeds from the settlement which legal experts in the room instantly knew would be in the millions to be placed in a trust. The courtroom was stunned into absolute silence. The corporate lawyers looked pale. Henry, the homeless man they had all ignored, had outsmarted them all. The final part of the will was then read. The trusts, to be named the Emily and Ella Foundation, after his daughter Ella and his friend Emily, was to be dedicated to providing housing, legal aid, and support for the city's homeless population. And who did Henry name as the sole executor of this multi-million-dollar trust? Emily, the coffee shop worker who had shown him kindness. She was given the power to run the foundation, to turn his tragedy into a force for good. Henry's will wasn't just about money. It was his final act of defiance, his last great engineering project. He built one last bridge, not of steel and concrete, but of kindness and justice, connecting his painful past to a hopeful future for countless others. Emily, crying silently in the back of the courtroom, finally understood. Henry was never invisible. He was just waiting for one person to see him. And in the end, he made sure the whole world would see him too. His legacy proved that a single act of kindness can change everything, and that true wealth is not what you have, but what you give. Then, one particularly harsh winter, Emily noticed something was wrong. Days turned into a week, and Henry was nowhere to be seen. His usual spot on the corner was empty, a void in the daily rhythm of her life. A knot of worry tightened in her stomach. She couldn't just ignore it. She began calling hospitals, her voice trembling with each new call. "I'm looking for a man named Henry, an older gentleman, likely homeless." The responses were a blare of, "No, sorry, and we have no record." But Emily persisted. Finally, a receptionist at a small, downtown clinic gave her the news she both dreaded and sought. "Yes, he's here." Emily rushed to the hospital. She found him in a quiet, sterile room, looking smaller and more fragile than ever against the crisp white sheets. He was unconscious, the rhythmic beep of a machine the only sound in the room. A nurse told her he had been found collapsed in a nearby alley, suffering from severe pneumonia and hypothermia. He had said, "Thank you for seeing me." Emily sat by his bedside, holding his cold hand, tears streaming down her face, a silent vigil for the friend the world had overlooked. Weeks after Henry passed away, life had a hollow feel to it. The coffee runs weren't the same. The corner felt empty. Then, a strange letter arrived for Emily. It was thick, official-looking, with a legal letterhead, a court summons. Emily stared at it, utterly bewildered. This had to be a mistake. A parking ticket? Jury duty? She had no connection to any legal proceedings. Confused but compelled, she went to the courthouse on the designated day. She found herself in a stuffy, wood-paneled room, filled with serious-looking people in suits. She felt completely out of place. A lawyer at the front of the room cleared his throat and began to read from a document. The last will and testament of Henry Gable. Emily's heart skipped a beat. "Henry." What was going on? The lawyer continued, his voice droning on with legal jargon until he reached the main clause. He looked up, scanned the room, and then his eyes landed on Emily. He read slowly and clearly. "I, Henry Gable, being of sound mind, do hereby leave everything I own, all my assets, properties, and accounts, to Miss Emily Carter." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Heads turned, eyes widened, staring at Emily, who sat frozen in her chair, her mind reeling. It was impossible. It made no sense. Henry had nothing. What could he possibly leave her? The lawyer motioned for Emily to approach. The room was buzzing with whispers. Who is she? Why her? He handed her a thick portfolio. "Miss Carter," he said gently, "Henry wasn't who you thought he was." He explained that Henry Gable had once been a successful businessman. Decades ago, he had inherited vast plots of land on the outskirts of the city. Land he never sold. Those shares, long forgotten, had matured into a fortune. The lawyer looked at Emily, letting the weight of his next words sink in. She looked at the lawyer, her face a mask of disbelief. Why did he let me buy him coffee every day if he had all that money? The lawyer sighed. He lived that way by choice, he explained. After his family passed away, he grew disillusioned with the world. He wanted to see if there was any genuine goodness left, any kindness without an agenda. He was testing humanity. Emily thought back to all their conversations, to the simple warmth of a shared coffee, the small talk about the weather. It was never about the money. It was about connection, and in that moment, she understood. She had been his proof. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes and began to fall freely. It wasn't the money. It was the weight of Henry's story, the depth of his loneliness, and the incredible, secret gift he had entrusted to her. I can't accept this, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. It's not right. This is his money. She tried to push the portfolio back toward the lawyer. Henry anticipated this, he said. He pulled a smaller, sealed envelope from inside the portfolio. It was a personal letter, addressed to her in Henry's familiar, shaky handwriting. Henry wanted you to have this, the lawyer said, placing it in her hands. With trembling fingers, Emily broke the seal and unfolded the paper. The letter was short. It read, My dear Emily, if you are reading this, it means you passed my test with flying colors. You never saw a homeless man. You saw a human being. You didn't help me because you expected something in return. You helped me because you have a good heart, and for that reason, you are the only person who deserves everything I have. Don't see this as a burden. See it as a tool. Do gudu italiano. Thank you for seeing me. Your friend, Henry. Emily clutched the letter to her chest, the paper absorbing her tears. It was a final conversation. A final gift from the unlikely list of friends. Emily did not use the money for herself. She knew exactly what Henry would have wanted. Guided by his final wish to do good with it, she established a foundation in his name. The first project was ambitious. A state-of-the-art shelter for the homeless. A place that offered not just a bed and a meal, but dignity, resources, and a path back to society. It was a place of warmth and safety, the very things Henry had lacked for so long. On the opening day, as people came in from the cold to find a welcoming smile and a hot cup of coffee, Emily unveiled a simple bronze plaque on the main wall. It didn't mention the money or the strange circumstances of her inheritance. It simply read, in memory of Henry Gable. For those the world forgot but kindness remembered. Henry's legacy wasn't the $2 million. It was the chain of kindness he had started. A chain that Emily would now continue, ensuring that no one else would ever feel unseen. Thank you for watching. If you were moved by this story, consider subscribing for more real stories that restore faith in humanity. Because, as Emily and Henry showed us, kindness is never, ever wasted.